Hello and welcome to the Cellar. In this episode, I will show you how I finished my floors. I also did a bunch of whitewash on the parts of the walls that needed it. But first, a point on the poop cellar condensation. So here we can see the dew point, which is almost the same temperature as the current temperature in the poop cellar. So this is condensation on the wall, and I think I will have that every summer. I finished the patches on the stairs with the correct concrete mix this time. I did 2 passes, the second one to fill the gaps that were left by the molding process and to get the level, and I think if I have time I will do a coat of colors to try to match them to the surrounding stones. I use the rest of the mortar to fill some cracks in the poop cellar. So now I'm starting to have a lot of stuff in the cellar, so it makes things a bit complicated when I need to move them around and have access to the floor or the walls. So here I am moving my stuff so I can really clean the bottom part and have access to the wall. I'm taking the time also to use the vacuum and remove all of the dust I can. So I'm starting to clean things little by little. And I have a lot of organization left to do and also a good amount of sortings between all of my stuff. So starting on the walls, it's pretty easy, just cleaning with the vacuum, removing the dust and a bit of the grime, so not a lot of things to say, but it was dust I put into the air with the compressed air when I was cleaning the joints in the repointing process, and now I am left removing it. And as we can see, it still makes a good bit of a difference. And I'm starting to think that it's something I will have to do periodically when I'm using the cellar and creating dust. I think I will have to clean the walls. So while making place for the top part, I tried placing the stuff in the middle of the bottom space to see the feeling it gives, because I think in the future workshop I won't use the walls as such, and I will try to have things in the middle so I can have access to the walls if I need to clean them, and I think I will. I also tried during this vacuuming to make the dust on the vault fall. I did as much as I could with a bit of a dusting broom. And here, this is the final coat of the varnish on this bench, and I am now very happy with the result. Some discoloration here and there, but it's great. Now I am starting a long process of trying to understand what I need to do to prepare the floor for painting. I know that preparing the surface is very important, so I tried different things. And one of the questions was how to get rid of the dust. Here I am trying to test the absorption of the concrete, because there are some tests that you can do and see if your concrete is not absorbent enough or too absorbing. Difficult to say with the test. And now I am trying to really just clean the surface and get rid of the dust, the fine dust. And yeah, so this of course is a good system, a good method, but I didn't really want to do that on the whole cellar. I can't really power wash or do stuff like that, but this was working. And yeah, just looking at the behavior of the concrete, see if the concrete is really brittle and when the dust stops coming. And here I am trying to do a test with some vinegar I had on hand and see if it's makes some bubbles and if it's fizzing, which would indicate that I need to neutralize the concrete. And I'm testing here on a part of the floor with more lime encrusted in the concrete. In the end, those tests weren't really conclusive. Now I am trying a new recipe for the whitewash in the poop cellar, and this time I used 1 part aerial lime, 1 part hydraulic lime, and a bit of black soap with olive oil and my carbon black. So I did it early and I wanted to see after a few weeks what it gave. I found some real pH paper to do a quantitative test, and looking at the result, it turns out my concrete is pretty much neutral, which is logical since it was poured in 2021. It had time to fully cured. And this is just a bit of cleaning, so mostly the tools I used most often in the repointing of the cellar, they took a bit of a beating, so a bit of de-rusting and cleaning for some of them. I'm trying my new dust shroud for the grinder with a concrete grinding disc, and I wanted to use that to remove the top coat of the floor, with also all the lime I had on the borders of the floor. So I'm quite happy with the performance of the shroud with the vacuum. It contained really most of the dust. I felt a bit stupid doing that after having vacuumed all of the walls, but here we are. So yeah, I started working on that, but quite quickly I realized that the tool was digging into the concrete. Not by much, by a couple of millimeters, and I wasn't really okay with that. It was pretty stressful because very hard to control, and I think it's the suction of the vacuum that pushes the disc into the concrete. Maybe my concrete is a bit soft. So I rigged 2 angle grinder handles to the concrete disc, and I did it manually. I printed a funnel to attach the vacuum to it, and it worked quite well. Of course, it's way slower than the angle grinder, but it's slow and steady, controllable, a much more appeased experience for myself. I did try the angle grinder a couple more times, but each time it kept digging into the floor without really any way of controlling it and avoiding it. Next were the cracks in the concrete. So first I tried to enlarge them and clean them, make them a bit easier to fill. I'm not really happy with the product I found. It's more of a universal filler, and I wanted something maybe a bit more tough, especially made for floors, but they didn't have anything like that. So for now it's doing the job, and we'll see if the cracks are returning, or maybe this product is soft enough to allow a bit of movement in the crack already existing. But the process of filling it was really nice. And we can see a bit of a time lapse with the stuff curing. Quite a number of those cracks, especially in this area of the cellar. It was the most prominent in the cracks. Each corner of the traps, of course. And more of the same. grinding the concrete, I struggle a bit on the part where the lime mortar was into the floor. I should have been more careful when I was repointing the walls, but yeah, a bit more work. So here we can see a bit more closely the piece I've made. Honestly, it worked well until the end. And I found that this process was quite meditative, and you can really enter a kind of a flow state doing that for hours. I try to work in batches of 4 hours at a time, and I think I did 1 square meter in 2 hours. But with good audiobooks, and yeah, I realized working in the cellar and doing all of those really long and tedious tasks that I kind of enjoyed them. There is not a lot of stress when doing that, and still you are doing something, working toward a goal, and you are seeing the progress. So yeah, it feels a bit stupid spending so much time doing that manually, but I don't regret it in the end. Working on the cracks now, removing the excess of the filler. This was also kind of nice. Really quick results. And with the filler, you really have a really good feedback of what you are doing. And this is the state at the end of the whole process. And we can see a lot of pores or bubbles in the concrete, and yeah, I'm not really happy about those, but there are not a lot of I can do right now. Maybe I should have done a big coat or something, but it would have been a lot of work. I wanted to test the paint and see if it will really stick to the concrete. So I have this little area of 1 square meter between the cellar and the poop cellar. And yeah, it was really a great spot to test the paint. So this is first and second coat, I think. And we can see the pinholes in the concrete, but the paint stuck really well, so I was really happy with the results. Before finishing and painting the floor, I thought it would be a good idea to do my whitewash now, so any drops I can remove easily. Yeah, so again the whitewash, something really easy to do. I'm happy with the recipe. I had waited a couple of weeks, so I knew now that this new recipe was curing well in the poop cellar, where it is very humid, so I was confident it would cure and not crack in the main cellar. So I redid those parts that were quite old now, a couple of years ago. And the whitewash is something I really enjoy doing. It's really easy. Yeah, and it gives great results. That's something maybe I would like to expand upon. Maybe try to have some different finishes, because right now it gives a very matte finish. But maybe some different additive could give it a more satin or glossy finish. But yeah, very, very cool process. So yeah, in the poop cellar there is a big areas of rocks that need to be whitewashed, and you can see me doing the second coat of that. And I'm really glad of this method, especially for those rocks that are very crumbly and brittle, and the whitewash help a lot. I had totally forgotten one of those little rocky area. So here I am doing it, and this big part I did 2 or 3 coats in the same day, waiting an hour between each. You can do a second coat quite quickly, but I think it's better to wait a day if you want to be really sure. Yeah, sorry about the dehumidifier noise throughout the video. I still need to clean it and see if I can make it a bit quieter. Now I am ready to paint. So this is the state of the floor just before the painting. So I use the traps to put some stuff away from the floor. I remove the dehumidifier. I hung the electrical wire where I could. And yeah, I was a bit apprehensive for this part because I never painted a floor. I have a little experience with paint anyway, and I was wondering how I would manage to get out of the cellar and finish painting under the stairs. I think this first coat was a bit diluted with white spirit, and I could have added a bit more white spirit, so the paint may have been more flowy and go into the pores a bit better. And this is the second coat, and on this top part I was a bit shy with the paint. I could have loaded the floor a bit more, and I ended up doing a third coat that I don't show here with a paintbrush, and try to mash and push the paint into the pores and pinholes. And this is the first 2 coats dry, and yeah, it's really great. It makes the place look so much more finished, but you can see the different aspects. So of course I wanted something a bit more glossy, a bit more shiny, but it's okay, it's still very nice for my workshop. And this is the second time only in 4 years that my system let me down because I left it unattended a couple days when the paint was drying. I think each time the sump pump is working, it's making a bit of a rotation, a bit of torque, and little by little it makes the floater get stuck on one side of the bin. And yeah, I was none too pleased. So now I'm preparing to do the same thing on the bottom part of the cellar. I waited a day or two to be sure the paint was fully dry before putting stuff on it. And this time I decided to do the whitewash before grinding the floor. And yeah, I wanted to paint the cinder block wall with something, and I tested a bit on the side with the whitewash, and it worked very well on the cinder block, and I think it's making a nice link between the 2 rock areas with the whitewash. I did 3 coats in one day, and in between I was grinding the floor. Again, really happy with the whitewash in this application. It held on very well to the cinder blocks, and since it's quite thick, it filled the gap between the blocks quite well after a few coats. So yeah, really glad I did that. And now I am finishing grinding the floor. So this part was around 10 square meters, which I did in 20 hours. So 2 hours for a square meter. And at this point my headlamp was broken, so I had to use this lamp on the tripod. And also with some crack filling, and this time the first coat was diluted a bit more, and I went a bit more heavy on the paint on the two coats, so I didn't have to fill the tiny pores, so I'm happy with that. I learned on the first one, and so the second part of the cellar was really well managed. And this is it, and yeah, really happy. We still have the same unevenness of the surface, but yeah, that's I mean, the drawback with paint. It doesn't feel as much as an epoxy coat or something. And a few finishing touches, the vertical faces of the concrete slab, also some metal parts. For the framing of the traps, I painted them black with a metal anti-rust paint. Here we are with the floor painted, and I'm really happy. So this is after the third coat, and I really tried to get the paint into those little pores. So there are still parts where it's a bit like that. Don't know if it shows quite all right, but we can see a bit of white at the bottom of the pores. But yeah, at some point you have to say enough is enough. And here we can see the divots caused by the grinding. So I tried to do it also in here. I really tried to use the grinder, but it kept doing things like that. And the whitewash. So really cured, really strong, and we'll see how it fares along the years. I hope it will not mold or something like that. But we can see the difference in colors, and I think this coloration that is more deep, it's because it's releasing some water. And this is the drier part. And I have noticed that it's evolving during the day and under different conditions. Also, we have some interesting stuff growing on some stones. Those bearded stuff like that. I took a time-lapse of it. I tried to match the time-lapse with the recorded humidity and temperature in the cellar. I don't know if there is a real correlation between the two. I guess we can see that when the humidity is falling, it's growing a bit more, also with the temperature, but I'm not really sure about the correlation. What is interesting is that it's growing and then getting back into the stone, and I think it's particularly interesting. So, theory about what it is, I think it's efflorescence, so it's minerals that are in the stones and in the water in the wall, and when the water is getting evaporated from some pores in the stones, the minerals are getting crystallized and left behind, and it's a bit like a pasta extrusion, if you see what I mean. It makes sense that if that's the case, when the string is a bit going out, and if there is more water at some point, it's dissolving the minerals and maybe the crystal string is getting sucked back into the pores. So that's my theory, at least. So I have those things around a few areas in the cellar, and I'm okay with that. It's quite easy to remove, but I've also have more of the white stuff, and this is not the same thing. This is a film. It really has the typical cellar odor, and it's getting everywhere except on the part I did. So that's really interesting, and clearly my mortar is more wet in here. So for that I don't have a lot of answer, and I'm not as happy with that. So we can see it's behind, which I think means I really need to keep clear of the walls and have access to them for cleaning. And I think I will need to clean them for the dust that I will make in the cellar, but also for the efflorescence. And it has no smell, so it's consistent with the minerals and a crystal of an inorganic nature. I think I will need to have something more in the middle for this part. In there I have a bit of efflorescence. I have also a bit on this corner, and I had it on the whitewash, which is quite interesting. But I didn't want to put too much stuff on this part anyway, because I like the arches, and also here. Maybe I will have some things just to hang some things on the walls. I am working on the lighting, and this will be the next big project. I have ordered some parts. Yeah, I want to work on the lighting because I will need access to the vault, and I need to do that now. So I'm really happy with the floor. I'm of course wanted something a bit more snazzy. I spent a bit too much time, but it's easy to say at the end, and I'm still happy with the result. It's a really clean aspect, and it's the best workshop floor I will have ever had. So that's still a good point. Getting close to it, I'm starting to project myself and envision the end state of the workshop. So thank you for having watched this video, and I will see you in the next one.